Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com.
And he's sure of that.
I am very sure of it. And pretty jazzed up. My name is Neil from SFJ 4x4, Simpson Family Jeeps. And I'm joined in Grandma's Couch Studio by the illustrious, decorated, debonair
Jeff Stramonti, dude.
Wow, I thought we were talking about Scott, and he just like, nope, that's not me.
No, that's
just
not me. He
tossed
was like,
it
no,
over.
I'm over that.
Wow, you know what it is? It's because he feels left out today because he's sitting in a black SFJ hoodie, whereas we've got the bright orange spooky season hoodies.
I don't think
The limited edition run.
So we're rocking this side
We're
of the
cool.
studio with bright
they
orange.
were so limited. I didn't even get one.
They were so limited. Fair. That's true.
That's because you were holding out for the Thanksgiving hoodie that
I
never got
was.
It
made.
never got made. But maybe.
No love for Thanksgiving.
But see, we didn't release a spooky season. We didn't release a Halloween hoodie.
This year.
Boom, boom, boom. There might be a Thanksgiving
hoping.
hoodie being released.
Oh boy.
There might be.
Don't crush my hopes.
Our listeners will have to be in, kind of be on the lookout for it.
Who's on my Thanksgiving squad?
Nobody's on. Nobody cares about the turkey. Nobody wants to eat the turkey. They want to they want to scare people and go right to Christmas.
We're gonna jump right to comments. Daddy Jeep, good morning SFJ. He was number one today, and he is glad to announce it. He wanted to make sure the world knew he was number one. And then Derek saying good morning, guys. And I think this is the Derek that we got to meet this weekend, and we'll talk about that when we talk about our trails this weekend.
Yeah, a great. We have actually met quite a few listeners, but shout out to Derek. I know Jason came up and met with us. There's a number of people, whether they're from YouTube or podcast, and they're listening on their assembly lines or while driving truck from here to there. We really appreciate you all tuning in and prioritizing your time with us. If you are listening to us in your ear holes, know that you too can jump on and join us live every Monday at 10:19. Get in the comments, enjoy yourself, share all that kind of good stuff. We did have a busy weekend, but you didn't introduce yourself, dude. So,
I introduced him. He has to introduce me.
boy.
So in this corner, we have the mad scientist.
Oh dear.
weighing in at a soaking wet 132 pounds.
That used
Plus
to be.
20 last summer.
Plus 20.
Was for a long time.
Is-
Not anymore.
Scott Brown!
Scott Brown!
With the confetti gun.
So I just shot a confetti gun.
Nothing
at-
in my
at
water.
the
It was a
Mad
mere
Scientist.
miss.
It was a near miss. I got the confetti gun from Bill from Daddy Jeep Garage and family, and one of Rob's people, as he so eloquently put himself over the weekend.
So Derek is on Facebook telling us, sure is. He is the Derek that's the truck driver from this
Awesome.
weekend, which hopefully means that he is parked at the truck stop that he told us that he likes to park at and not driving across 90 at the moment.
If you are, hopefully it's an
Well,
appropriate mount on the other side of the vehicle. You're not distracted. Whatever. I'm not here to judge.
We got Nick and Linda Perry saying morning, and Dan Domsky saying good morning.
Outstanding. Good morning to all of you as well. We are going to be changing up our flow of the podcast a little bit. And so if you're used to, hearing our weekend updates and whatnot, we will still be doing that. We'll be doing it a little bit different towards the end of the program. And we encourage you to
Kind of after the end of the program.
kind of after the end of the, you're going to have to hang around for that and why we would do that. We'll also be, I have this giant black trash bag for our
What are you doing?
I think we're having a storm.
that was
Well,
not
we
a
did
storm.
we did have a storm this
There
morning.
was a doozy, and that might or might not, but actually,
He is a child playing with a plastic lightsaber.
this is
Identifies with the
extendable,
dark side, obviously.
an extendable lightsaber, and we'll talk about why I might have that towards the end of the pro. Whoa, the mic got real close to me. So,
It's
anyways,
because you're swinging a lightsaber around
yep,
in a
and
very
I have,
small confined area.
and confetti gun.
Ah, there it is.
Jeffrey's going to do a great job cleaning up the studio for us.
Mhm.
So today's topic is the HIPAA law of customers.
Mhm.
And, we're going to be telling you about why that's important. Obviously, before we get to that, tell us what we should do, Jeffrey, as listeners and followers.
Oh, we should like and subscribe our show.
We should like and subscribe.
And if you're in Antarctica, or the Arctics of any kind,
you should
get on there.
download all the shows.
You should do a download and
just let it run.
We need the seventh continent.
We do. We're in 6 continents. We need number 7. You should like and subscribe. Share this with somebody who you think would benefit from this automotive inspired podcast where really we treat you like family, because that's what matters.
You know what else? Write us a review. We want some reviews on there. With obviously 5 stars preferred, but we want to hear your
you can
thoughts.
5-star review myself and the Mad Scientist. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
we understand about Jeff.
Yep, we
do.
So anyways, good morning to Leslie Ann and good morning to Bill.
Awesome. Good morning to all of you, and we thank you for prioritizing being here both on Facebook and YouTube Live. And of course, like I said, you can jump on, find all of those. And if you miss it on either of the lives, you can always find it catalog on the I Speak Jeep podcast YouTube channel as well. You can jump on there and watch along in the process. So anyways, HIPAA law of customers is a concept that, that came out pretty early on in kind of the SFJ 4x4 business model.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one that I think is inherently important for a number of reasons. And I think that one of the challenges when we hear or talk about HIPAA, pretty much any kind of grown adult, our eyes might roll back in our head a little bit, and we kind of sigh, and we're like, oh, here's this stuff again,
Yep.
But I think there's a little bit of merit in it.
Well, don't worry,
I want
though.
to talk about that.
As a customer, we're not making you sign a HIPAA form.
We're not.
We're just kind of following the guidance of
the
HIPAA.
guidance. So I think it's valuable to say, let's start with kind of the contextualization to say, where does HIPAA itself, what is it for somebody who might not be familiar? What is it and where did it come from?
So this was an act that came out in, well, Scott, take a guess what year this came out.
What year did HIPAA become, is this when it became a law or when it became a guideline in the first place?
When it became a law.
Because arguably the SFJ 4x4 difference of the HIPAA law of customers is not a law.
Right.
Right? Despite the fact that I call it a HIPAA law of customers.
I would say probably early 2000s.
That's fair.
I would agree with you before I looked into the statistics. That to me was when
that's when it started becoming a pain in my butt.
It became a pain in all of our butts.
Exactly.
Right?
And when I was in the fire service, early 2000s was when it became a very enforceable thing. We had to start carrying the documents on the ambulances, and it was just a nightmare of paperwork for first responders.
Mm-hmm.
So looking into the facts, HIPAA actually was a law that was it passed in 1996.
Wow.
It didn't become enforceable till the early 2000s.
There it is.
There we go.
So
that makes sense, right?
2005, I think, if I remember right, was the year that it really largely started to become enforceable.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2004 was when they said it had to be enforced, but like 2005 was when it was like, okay, now we're actually enforcing it.
We were comparing it to the what's that license that you're
Real ID.
Real ID, which while we were doing fun facts, right?
Mind
So
blown.
first of all, let's talk about Real ID for 2.2 seconds, because again, bureaucratic things. We were all kind of told that Real ID was going to be relevant. I don't know, right before COVID, right?
Yep.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, we're pushing it off.
COVID delayed it.
COVID delayed it. All right, much like
Well,
anything
there's
else.
some states that haven't been able to get the technology yet. There's
Okay,
this,
would you
there's
agree?
that.
But because you walk into the DMV or BMV, depending on what state you're from, and there's this like, get your Real ID if your license is expired, right? You would agree.
And now they're claiming by 2025 that it actually will be enforced.
Enforceable.
We'll see.
We'll see, right? Now, when do you think Real ID came out? When do our listeners think that Real ID came out? I would love to know if anybody else.
Going off that, I'm going to say probably 2009.
Not bad. Not bad.
I gotta go to the comments again because well, first of all, Roy saying good morning. Good time seeing you at Bantam.
Absolutely. Good seeing you as well, Roy.
Your sister, how do you not have me on the show today? We should have had her on the show.
We should have. She could have talked about HIPAA.
It's not too late. You can come in real quick. We'll get you on air. And then Daddy Jeep was saying, do you accept Blue Cross for Jeep mods now?
I mean, debatable. You know, if they
if you're
the
paying
bill,
for us to have Blue Cross, maybe.
right, right. So Jeffrey, what did you find out? Was it 2002, 2003?
It was 6 months after the Patriot
So
Act.
it was right there.
Ah,
Real ID was actually as kind of not inherently in the Patriot Act, but it was
Part of that same fallout.
part of that same movement.
Ah.
Fascinating, right?
yeah.
So we have yet to enact that in 20 some years. So we'll see if 2025 is actually enforceable.
Yeah.
You know. All right. So what is do we actually know what HIPAA stands for?
Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And your sister may correct me on that, but I believe that's what it is.
Right. I don't know. I mean,
It
she's
sounded very good.
you know what? I really loved
it
when
was
she
not.
worked here because she was actually a great front end associate.
She was.
You know, she has some great administrative, you know, approach, and she also provided some free counseling to our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before or after they paid their bill, I suppose.
and that's probably why the HIPAA law is such a thing here.
All right. So, what is HIPAA?
So it's basically a privacy act that protects patients and our purpose customers' information. We're not out there sharing customers' personal information to other customers or to other businesses, things like that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno, and that's aptly why we named the episode that, because we're not sharing those intimate details of other people. Even at the show this weekend, we had several customers asking about the Jeep that was on display, and I was like, "Oh, it's just one of our customers. If you've heard of 4 Jeeps Deep, that's one of those Jeeps." And just kind of left it at that. I didn't expand on how they have 4 Jeeps, where that comes from, or anything like that.
And so, you know, so as we kind of waver back and forth before we get into the complete meat and potatoes of how we enact our HIPAA law of customers, you know, as I think of many things in life, the original intention is probably pretty good. It's to kind of protect you, the consumer, from, you know, having a bunch of people in your business, right? We can't buy it. We're not buying and selling your information. We're not inadvertently profiting from you as an individual. You know, there's a whole bunch of things like there, from the medical industry towards the individual.
And the medical industry, a lot of it was related to insurance companies not being able to have that information and sell that information, and also not allowing your information, your medical history, to become public knowledge.
Yep. Exactly.
So all your spam is not coming from SFJ 4x4.
No, we are not selling your information. But where it really, where I think it really becomes kind of beneficial is in this. This is going to be a podcast a little bit about the social pieces that makes SFJ 4x4 different, right? We always talk about the SFJ 4x4 difference, and that's kind of a multitude of things. But this is one of those. This is one of those moments, and I think if we kind of boil it down, I don't think you like to be compared to somebody else, right? Like, we shouldn't be like, oh, you know, if it's a sibling or a cousin and you're at Thanksgiving dinner, I always feel like it's one of those things, a little damaging to be like, oh, well, look at your cousin over there. Why can't you be more like them? You know, or they did such and such and they won, this cross country race. Why didn't you win that? Or you could win that next, you know?
Is this kind of like measuring 40s to be 37 inches tall?
Yeah, nobody really likes that, Scott. Nobody actually likes that.
We get enjoyment out of it. I don't know about you.
Uh-huh. No doubt.
Maybe it's because those were 40s on your Jeep.
You know what the wild piece is? I had 37s on Jen's Mall Crawler, right? So we have their BFGs. They're brand new. Just did a mountain balance on them on KMC, grenades, and beautiful, or no, machete. Excuse me. My wife has machetes, the pink rings. You've seen the pictures. It's at the show. Blah blah blah. And the wheels are old, but the tires are brand new. And I just did a mountain balance on them. And the white Jeep, also on display, that you were mentioning, named Clyde, we just put brand new Yokos on KMC grenades, or Prims. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. They were Prims. Those 37-inch Yokos were a solid inch and a half taller than the BFG 37s.
BFGs run
Yeah.
small.
You know what? I mean, if you are in the inches game, you need to call us because we'll tell you and save you some heartache in the process.
Yes.
But I guess ultimately the idea of the HIPAA law customers is kind of twofold for me. One is nobody really likes to be compared to somebody else. Is my kind of my first sentiment. The other thing is I particularly don't love the whole name dropping of like, well, so and so did this to their vehicle, as if that should inspire you to equally do it as well. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I guess for me, objectively, is to treat each individual coming into the business as if you're the only person that matters in that moment. In that consultation, you and your Jeep are arguably the people who primarily matter. And we should not then seek to compare your experience with us with somebody else's.
What we will do, though, is take your driving experiences and the way that you're going to use your vehicle, and we'll use our own personal vehicles for examples of types of equipment that would work for that driving scenario. So it might be, well, actually, Scott has this specific component on his vehicle for that reason, or I have this on mine for that reason.
Right.
Yep.
We use our own. We use us as examples all the time. But we are not setting you up to compare an individual, a customer against a customer.
Right.
And I was, I think it's additionally important to say that we value where every Jeeper is coming from, and no matter where they're encountering the Jeep life. And so whether you want to just get ice cream in your overbuilt, tonned and 40s and whatever, and all you want to do is get ice cream, I don't really have, I don't care.
Fine.
Or
That's
you want to
fine.
go wheel your stock Jeep and just need maintenance done.
And you just want to wheel your stock Jeep, and you just need to bounce the idea of what ball joints are a better option for me, and we can help you acquire those, and so I was actually involved in a social group, and it was actually it's part of a retreat, and one of the core principles of this retreat and of this group is you are not allowed to share your profession, your net worth. You're not allowed to share much of your personal information past, your nuclear family and maybe some other, kind of specifically scribed things. And the goal or the idea was within this retreat and this group was to create an equal playing ground where all people's voices were equally important or had a collective, equal start. It was a really interesting experience that I had. And I thought, man, that really makes sense, because I had some experiences over the years going into different garages, and they would want to name drop somebody in town and, oh, so-and-so did fix this on their vehicle, or so-and-so didn't fix this. And, they would get all kind of hubbubby about it. And it's like, I kind of want you to tell me about my vehicle, right?
Yeah.
This is when I was on the other side of the counter before we had, created the business. I can look out onto the Jeep and off-road community, and I can see who's running around in really gnarly, professionally built vehicles, and I can see who's running around on bubble gum and duct tape, and I can do that myself. I don't need you to say it to me.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you're going to use something that speaks, talk about a build you did specifically. This Jeep is a reference. You don't need to say who the owner is or why they built it that way or that kind
Or
of stuff.
how they afforded to do it. That's another question.
And that's the one I'm going to get to.
How do they
in this.
afford this?
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. But you were saying, what?
The build should speak for itself, and if you want to use that as an example, okay, that makes sense to me. But you shouldn't be like, oh, well, our one customer, he's the quarterback of blah blah blah. That doesn't matter,
Right?
If we got a really cool vintage Jeep, or just for example, and we want to use that for an example. We're like, well, on this we did this because of this. Okay, that's fine in my opinion. You're not name dropping. You're not putting their business out there. You're letting the build speak for itself.
Right. And we're not either being maybe critical nor overly like overselling something based on the fact that somebody else had done it.
Yes.
Right. Our
it's
objective.
Not the shoe game where, oh man, did you see so-and-so has the new Nikes? Now I need them.
Right.
Nope.
Nope. Because ultimately,
because Neil's going to wear Crocs.
I am. I got compliments on the Crocs this week.
No, you didn't. You got made fun of for the Crocs.
I'm going to swing my sword out there and
dear.
Ask Davey about that.
I'm just going to intimidate you with my light up extendo.
I am not intimidated, but Davey might have PTSD from the sword.
I might have got Davey over there.
So who's going to give us a green lightsaber to offset the evil over there of the dark side?
The Sith Dollar
Green
Tree.
or blue, we'll take either
the
one.
Sith
I did
Dollar
not
Tree
realize it
sword.
actually lights up until just now.
Heck yeah, it lights up. So
this is SS4x4. We don't just have to do things.
Right, we don't have to do it, right?
I mean, it was bright over the weekend, so I did not see that it lit up then.
I see.
And somebody hogged it the whole time, so I never got a chance to.
Oh,
that's me.
There it is.
I hogged it.
Now we understand why he's not
I played
feeling
with
the
it the
lightsaber.
entire time.
The entire time.
I'm not denying anything.
Jeff has lightsaber envy.
He has lightsaber envy, and
a little bit.
And now my lightsaber is fully extended. That's the word I was looking for.
Hang tight for at the end of the episode to find out why I actually have the lightsaber envy, because there's a story behind that.
Is there though?
Yeah, there is.
So the
Joe
idea
Brella
with
just caught on that there's a lightsaber on air. It's a lightsaber in big bold letters.
He's excited.
So the HIPAA law is meant to kind of both be a guiding component of this business, but also to reassure you as a consumer. Now, I think a big piece of this does go back to, and what Jeffrey had alluded to, and and so I will expand upon it. Our first couple heavily investing customers, right? Mm-hmm. And the builds spoke for themselves.
Yep.
Right? They did, right? When we have these big, over the top TJ Wrangler from out of state, and we've got, big gnarly at the forefront of the time axles underneath of it with a long arm suspension, and a Cherokee that equally it was a 2000 Cherokee that equally was formidable in its build quality. And at that time, we did not exactly have the reach and the same same reputation as we have now, because we were more of a startup business, right? Mm-hmm. So you get people coming in frequently going, and this is the one that really burns my buttons. Must be nice.
Yeah.
Must be nice to be that person.
Yep.
Right? Must be nice.
The grass is always greener.
The grass is greener over there.
Yep.
Right? Well, what does that person do so that they can afford that? Must be nice to be them, right?
And the crazy part is, in some of those circumstances, they don't understand the sacrifices that person is making to put into their hobby.
Yeah. Well, and so that's the one individual that I know that I've explicitly had over the years, and I do tell this social emotional story, or I do draw upon his own experience, is the fact that he was born and raised in Pittsburgh, really didn't move from there. Mm-hmm. He was still, he had bought his childhood home. He just kind of stayed there the whole time. And he worked his life as a warehouse tile packager. So, I mean, he's not the vice president. Mm-hmm. He's not the president. He's not the CEO. He didn't.
Just worked hard.
He just worked hard. He didn't eat out when we first met him.
Yep.
And
very conservative on his expenditures.
Very conservative on his expenses. And what he wanted to spend his money on, he wanted to ensure that he was investing in quality.
Yep.
And so, he kind of operated. It was one of the first customers I was really aware of, the buy once, cry once, mentality. And so, so his name's Jim, and Jim and I became, pretty good friends in the process. And meanwhile, I know that Jim's not eating out. He's not, into any type of recreational vices or anything else that anybody else is doing. He's not going out to party. He
lives a simple life.
He lives a pretty simple but enjoyable life as far as he's concerned.
Yeah.
And then he went buck wild on a 2000 Jeep Cherokee.
Yep.
With a custom Curry high pinion 44 front axle, and that was actually the second or third axle that we built for him in the front of that Cherokee. A long arm hybrid lift kit of JKS and Rusty's and Iron Rock Off Road and Clayton, all kind of meshed together to make it just highly functional. All the goodies as far as performance driven. Beautiful body and fenders and rockers and steps and armor and the whole 9 yards, And, people will come in and be like, oh, that's so gorgeous. That's this, that, and the other thing. I would never invest that kind of money in a Cherokee. That must be nice that he's got that money to just throw away.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
that's his choice.
That's his choice, right? And our job is not to weigh in on the merit of your investment. Our job is to expand upon doing the service in excellence, right? And that's all part of our HIPAA law, the SFJ 4x4 difference.
I don't care where your money comes from as long as legally you're paying us.
That's also true.
So Daddy Jeep says it best, honestly. Must be nice? Nah, we just make poor financial decisions.
Well, that's the Jeep life. Just empty every pocket.
Yep.
So as far as our own approach, there's really no, in my kind of my perspective, there's no advantage to talk about Bruno, right? And honestly, the idea that you probably don't want to hear about Bruno. Yeah. Now, with that said, one of the challenges I've had to share with customers over the years is, while we don't talk about Bruno, we do tend to have 22 to 25 Brunos at any given time. And that's where it actually sometimes, where I think that small Jim Bob garage and they're bringing up these other jobs they're working on, they're telling you about this person. And, their demands, they said I have to have it out on Friday, so I got to bump you in the schedule and blah, blah, blah. I think some of the challenges that we experience sometimes are the fact that, again, our initial objective is to help you feel like a priority, because in that time frame you are the priority while you're here in schedule, and that's why our process is so important, our recipe, if you will, because it helps maintain balance throughout the moment you go through a consultation, to paying your deposit, to your parts coming in, to point of service, to receiving updates, so on and so forth. The problem is, we also, since we're not telling you about all the other Jeeps we're working on a bunch of other Jeeps.
Yes, and we're very ambitious.
We're very ambitious, but also we care about the quality of the work.
Yep.
So we take a little longer to do that work than some of those other garages out there that are just turning out 30 vehicles in a single day.
Yes.
Whereas that may take us a week to do that.
Yeah, some of the
or 2
general
weeks to do
service
that.
garages that their objective is to get in and do a tire rotation and an oil change in 25
nothing
minutes.
makes my skin crawl but have a customer come in and be like, well, I had this at 4 other shops and it's still broken.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh.
So now that means, you've paid all of those people, or you've paid with your time, if nothing else. At minimum.
Yes.
Or ones that they have dealt with an issue for years because they had other shops look at it, and then they bring it to us, and we're like, no, this is blatantly wrong right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like, just this alone, before we even look any further.
Even more, load the gun. People come from a restoration shop, and they say, oh, I had all this done. It should be good to go.
Or paint and collision, right?
Yeah.
Not just restoration, but they come from a body shop. And that's the thing. Obviously, I think we share those anecdotes to kind of expand upon the conversation, but not necessarily to put someone's personal information in our mouth to share with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Not only customers' information, but you also won't hear us talk about other shops.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
What that shop did is what that shop did. We're not here to talk about who they are, what they did, or what their reputation is. We're here to tell you how to fix your vehicle, and that's what we're going to do.
And another fun thing of HIPAA, we have been approached multiple times by the significant other of the Jeep owner to then make birthday things happen, Christmas things happen, and we don't divulge any of that, but we are totally here for it, and we'll help.
Yeah.
Come up with creative stuff.
I think that all of it kind of is this idea that maintaining a professional decorum in our approach is core to the model, right? And I think that people like that, and they want to know that not only can they trust us for the service that we're providing, but that you are receiving a trustworthy experience with your information, with your kind of your personal approach. You know what I mean?
I think that's one of the reasons why so often than not our customers become on a friend basis, because you already have that trust in place. You already know what you're getting. You don't have to keep us at an arm's length, because you know what we are and what we do and why we do it.
Well, and one of the other things is, sometimes we're too stupid to know when to stop, but we try to communicate with the customer the whole time.
Yes.
And there's a comment in here about camshaft position sensor bank 2. Well, sometimes we can't figure out the issue, but we will try to do our best to communicate and try to solve that problem to the best of our abilities.
Still fall in the lake.
What?
Still fall in the lake. I can't walk on water yet.
Oh.
All right.
I wasn't ready.
I didn't see that one coming.
I didn't. Wow.
That was
Scott
profound. For Scott. Wow. He made a sports reference earlier, which
I try to.
For those that don't know, Scott does not know
aiming
sports.
to walk on the water.
You made a sports ball reference?
Yeah, he said that some of our customers could be a quarterback from a team, and we wouldn't tell you that. And I went, huh.
See, I slipped that in there so good. He didn't.
He did.
I know,
because that's how a normal person would speak. You're right.
Correct.
I get that
but
now.
Scott, he doesn't make sports references.
You're
so
right.
The question is, does he know what sport that came from?
That's he knows that it would be
people play
illustrious
golf.
enough. I know people
I'm done.
play golf. That was so good. He must have been painting this morning.
Yep. Yeah, he must have. Were you painting this morning?
No.
Well, I don't believe you. So Amanda says, morning, guys. Joe said we did communicate in his situation. He really appreciates that. So,
yeah, and I just, there is there's just so much to this, I think, that is what, you want to separate, your experience, right? You want to feel that you're communicated with, that your experience within the doctor's office, the Jeep doctor's office, whatever it might be.
You don't want to be a number.
Right. You don't want to be a number.
Any part of life, you want to feel like your needs matter, and they do. They're valid. And that's if what you want to see in your doctor or getting your Jeep worked on, you should feel heard and listened to, and try to address those needs appropriately. And if you have unattainable needs or expirations, we should be able to be like, well, actually, you can't get there.
The word is expectations for our listeners.
But that's fine.
I want to be like, do-do-do-do. The word
wanted
is
to
expectation. You are not going to expire as our customer. Other shops, your vehicle may
Wow,
be.
Scott. He wasn't actually painting today. It's apparent now. So anyways, one of the things that I think we've gotten really good at is, much like a doctor's office, is we have a chart on your paper trail.
So this is what and that's exactly where I want to take this next.
Wait.
And so kind of lay out for people, what is our HIPAA process, our data collection, Jeffrey, like how, since you've been, obviously you've taken a vision that, honestly, that I came up with years ago, right? And each person adds their flavor and, polishes it and hones it and does amazing. And, it's always interesting because I'm aware of the contributions of each individual in the process, but it was so apparent to me like a year or two ago, it must have been about a year and a half ago. My wife came in and she said something to you. She goes, "Oh, Jeffrey, I want to thank you for helping organize Neil and helping organize the process." And I thought, I'm perfectly organized. But I feel some type of way. My masculinity's been called into question.
Maybe herding cats sometimes. It's okay.
So we have a pretty thorough recipe, and we're always harping on kind of staying the course, because when we stay the course, we ensure that our customer and our enthusiasts, our listeners, followers, that their experience is positive as well. And I know that we work with a couple other subcontracted shops who don't do an iota of what we do. Right?
That some of them don't even have a printer.
That some don't even have a printer, right?
Yep.
And that predates Jeffrey in this situation, but it just boggles my mind when we have customers come in and say, "Hey, I was at such and such shop and I got an alignment done," and I'm like, "Great, I would love to read your alignment." I know that your average customer, and this is what frustrates me with Jim Bob's Garage. Jim Bob's Garage doesn't care about individuals enough, their customers enough, to believe that you can read the alignment.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm always like, I don't care if you can read the alignment or not. Here's the proof in the pudding, and I will help you interpret the alignment and tell you what I'm reading out of it. Likewise, it's like when we create Google photo albums or we do our picture updates while your vehicle is in service.
Oh yeah, we'll send you pictures that you're not going to know what it is, but we're going to take the time to explain that picture to you.
Yes. And we're going to take the magic out of it. The mystery,
take the magic and mystery out of it.
Because at the end of the day, it's just nuts and bolts.
Nuts and bolts, man.
And putting them in the right order.
Correct.
And I come from the transmission world. There was lots of like, well, I can't show you how I drilled the hole and how I did this, and there's no magic there, and you're making it seem that you're some god
in the process
when you're not.
And it almost is a bit degrading to a customer. And the thing with the Jeep community is we are small and mighty enough that I don't think that if that is your personality as a business, that doesn't have lasting power.
No.
Right? Because there's a lot of qualified DIYers in the industry. Yep. My intention is like, hey, there's plenty of people who have built Jeeps, built trucks, done some really gnarly stuff, and now they're just at a point in life that they're busy, or maybe they don't have the garage, maybe they've relocated.
Or maybe they just don't want to do that part of the project.
They just don't want to do that part of the project anymore. Yeah. Our job is not to weigh in on the merit of, honestly, of why you're here.
That's more flattering when someone that we look at as like, man, you're a really cool builder. And you're like, I trust you guys to do my project, to work on this for me.
Yeah.
That's flattering as all get out.
Absolutely.
That means you value our abilities to meet your needs. And that's awesome.
Absolutely. And so, us being able to insert ourselves at a egalitarian level versus, well, I have all the answers, and you should be happy that you're in my presence because I have all the answers. I'm actually now my piece in ownership, and then ultimately what has spilled over into, I think, making the podcast successful, making our YouTube channel successful, even making our consultation successful, is the idea that I'm happy to share that information for you. My ego comes into the equation when I go, yeah, but I believe that Scott can build that better than anybody else. I'll tell you how to do the crawlover, but I'm guarantee you Greg will see something that that you could look blatantly at and not be able to gauge it well, that that Jeffrey will be able to immediately go into the back end of that audio system and know which little magical wire to move to left to right and up to down in the menu and make the system work. That's where my ego comes in and goes, I know we're going to do it better. I'll tell you, I'll be fully, there's no magic. I just know that our experience and our recipe and our consistency are the reciprocal
rubbing off.
Yeah.
Wow.
Replicable. Replicable.
There you go.
That's the word I was looking for.
Word of the
Replicable.
day is replicable.
Replicable. Our replicable process is what then allows us to just simply have a different approach to servicing the vehicle.
And that kind of makes me think of a good point. I've seen Neil do this before, and I do it as well, just a little bit differently. He enjoys when somebody comes up and is loving on the business, but he doesn't need to be the pedestal person. He almost likes to not be known as the owner, be able to wander around, hear people talk about it. That's very fulfilling. And I do that with my builds. I don't need to be like, this is Scott the builder, and he built this Jeep. I almost want to be in the background and hidden and just walk around and hear people say like, and see what I put into it. And how they
I
see
understand why he conspired against me with Davey to create Jeff the Builder now, because he didn't want to be known as Scott the Builder. Oh, it makes so much more sense now.
That's probably true. And on that note, I just always feel that when it comes up, I always like to try and share the story. And if you know me well enough, or this is your time you're being kind of familiarized, nothing would make me happier, or does. I mean, it happens now, I'll be honest with you, than I'm taking the trash out, or I'm doing, I'm torquing somebody's wheels in the parking lot, and a new customer comes in. They don't know me from Adam. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, hey, just head through the man door. The guys will get you all taken care of. Because nothing makes me happier than to know that, like, and overhear people, like, man, that's so cool. Like, oh, Jeff really had that down, and he was super thorough in his approach, and they just think I'm just some schlep taking out the garbage, or torquing wheels in the parking lot, whatever.
Our maintenance guy.
Yeah, I'm the custodian. That's fine with me. That's perfectly.
He's the porter.
I will tell you, my favorite was, I tell this story, and this is when we first kind of had our big foray into social media. Honestly, pushing 8-10 years ago. We were at a show, and so we're at the show, and there's the trailer. We had the big red trailer. It said Simpson Family Jeeps down the side of it. And you know the story I'm going at, Scott. But we had a guy. He had a very visible presence in social media. His name's Scott Lindquist. Scott is still involved with us. In a very limited capacity. He's off doing great things for his family.
You don't get out once you're a part of the group.
No, you don't get out. You never get out alive.
No.
I leech on, man. So anyway, so we're at the show, and this woman comes up to the booth. She's walking past, and she was part of a bigger group, and I saw her kind of break away. They got tied up at something down at the other end, and she walks past the trailer, and she's kind of reading the back of the booth, and she's Simpson Jeeps,
and then it clicks.
Simpson Family Jeeps, Scott Lindquist. And she's just like looking around, like saying this out loud, and I happen to be the person closest to her. And who gives a flying fig what I did in the world to make sure that this whole operation was there.
Neil Simpson didn't exist in that moment.
It did not matter. She was there to see Scott Lindquist, and she turns to this group of 6 people down the aisle, and she is like, "Hey guys, this is Simpson Jeeps. Scott Lindquist. Is he here?" And then she turns back to me, and she's like, "Is he here?" And I was like, you know what? Absolutely, he is. Let me go find him. Yeah. Let me get him. And I go get him. And she's, super excited because they had become Facebook friends, and they were, had corresponded about modifications on their Jeep. And they, she felt like this group was familiar with him, and he was familiar with them from this virtual standpoint. And they're trying to take a selfie with him.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? How about I take the picture for you? Let me get you guys all in front of the booth in the trailer.
That show will forever be known as the koozie year.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about so many koozies.
I remember the koozies.
And he wasn't there all the time. Somebody, is Scott here? And I'm Scott too. And I'm like, no, he's not here.
He's not here.
They're not here for me.
They're not. They weren't here for Scott Brown. They were here for Scott Lindquist.
Well, can you make sure he gets this? Is it another koozie? Yep. Okay. Yep. He's got a pile over here.
We'll get it for you. So, anyway, so back to our HIPAA law.
I didn't realize about the koozie conversation. So this is a trend for us at shows because last year was the coffee cake debacle. So
there was a koozie situation, and the whole industry was inundated with koozies. And I'm not even going to get into it, but there was actually...
It's like pre-duck.
It was pre-duck.
Yeah.
The trend before the ducks were these koozies.
Yes.
And there was a club.
the mafias.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was their signature.
The koozie mafia.
And the thing is, so I hear that the koozie mafia...
There it is. Joe's saying koozies were a Facebook Jeep Mafia thing back then.
So I hear that Jeep Mafia wants to lay the claim for the koozies. And while they probably were the ones who made it the most famous,
Right.
there was a Jeep singles dating site called Jeeples, who I think...
We're going back to the dark web now.
I think Jeeples actually created the koozie exchange because their whole calling card was the fact that, like, hey, I'm a single Jeeper wanting to meet other single Jeepers. And so they had a business card that you have your phone numbers and where you could link up with other Jeepers, and the koozie, and you would koozie another single Jeeper. And that actually came out at or around or right before the Jeep Mafia laid their claim to the original kooziing club.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Feel old now.
They were not trying to koozie Scott Lindquist, just so we're all on that story, right? They were not. There was not Jeeples who was doing that.
No.
It was, well, he's happily married, folks.
Doesn't mean they weren't trying.
That's, well. So HIPAA law, right, and our replicable process, and the piece that I had brought up with you in our documentation. And one of the things that I've always shared from the very beginning of the business was we used to have manila folders, and we would keep all of the build sheets, which were not nearly as elaborate as they are now, many of the receipts, many of the diagnostic sheets, lots of scrap paper, all that kind of stuff. And I used to say that if you were a customer from outside the area, or if you were a customer who's relocating, you could take this packet of information all about your Jeep. You did not have to understand everything about your vehicle that we did, and I was transparent enough that I will give this to you, and you take it to the next shop so that next shop has a baseline to help service your vehicle.
It's literally your health chart that you could take to the next doctor in another area.
That's exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it was. So at this point in time, our charting system for customers is pretty elaborate. Is that fair to say?
I would say it's elaborate, and yet it is still constantly improving.
It is.
And just so that everyone is aware, if you're in the comments, there's quite the stuff going on in the comments. I'm not even going to get into it at this moment, but
it has to do with Joe. Of course.
It has, yes. And Bill, they're just having a good old time. As a quick shout out, Darla's saying, hi guys from Oklahoma, and Shells Lee is saying good morning as well.
Good morning to all of you. And I'm going to take a quick moment and just plug the fact that, you know, maybe you're not always available to jump on at 10:19 a.m. or some, time frame thereof. But if you are one of our dedicated listeners, I encourage you to jump in, because there are fun little side conversations in the comments that you can get involved in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So our process that's constantly improving looks like what?
Well, so it has the initial paperwork from when you first walk in the door. We have you fill out with information about your Jeep or complaints or concerns about your Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll have any documentation, whether it be a diag report, a crawlover report, just a general service report. All of that's going to be included in there. And then we have a post-service paperwork that we literally do a quality control check of your vehicle. We check the boxes. We review that with you. We do the walk around of the vehicle with you and a final torque of your wheels before you leave. And that is all in a file system, so that in a situation that you come back, 6 months, 2 years later, whatever it is, we can go, hey, what did we last do to this vehicle? And we pull this file out and we can see that information available to us. Or if you're doing the crawlover and you're doing repairs in stages, we do that often. Well, we know that we checked off these boxes of that first repair. this is where we need to go next based on what's in your documentation.
Likewise, you receive all of that documentation or copies thereof. So we keep copies, you get copies.
Yep.
And so if you're, again, going to go somewhere else, you've moved away, you can go, oh, yeah, hey, you know what? 6 months ago, they did tell me that my exhaust was starting to rust through. So now that I'm at this other shop and they want to redo the exhaust in its entirety, you might be able to go back and go, oh, well, you know what? These guys actually said that the muffler was okay. And I actually have a note here that says my muffler was replaced, looks like it was replaced recently.
Yep.
So can we just do the collector? I know that's where it broke. Or does it maybe financially make more sense to do? Maybe you can explain that to me more. It makes you a more educated consumer.
Gives you talking points.
Gives you talking points. It sets you up for success, and that's ultimately the goal. There are a couple documents that we don't provide you. They're internal work orders, what we call WOs, which is an internal communication to ensure that from that initial itemized estimate or build sheet that you approve, that our technicians, are
it's basically a
hitting
blueprint.
It's a blueprint, right?
It's essentially stripping your actual estimate or invoice into a readable form for the tech to work on.
Right, and they make notes back to us, but that usually stays in line with everything. We actually have a 4x8 landscape pegboard, more or less, hung in our backspace that has a series of 11,000 clipboards on there.
Yep.
And while your vehicle is here in progress, and whether your vehicle is here for a multi-month or multi-year restoration or service, or whether it's here for a week long, you get organized onto the clipboard, and all of your paper trail, follows that. So again, we have it so that we're trying to be as thorough as possible. But then, eventually you'll be provided with the majority of that when you leave for your own records.
And part of that clipboard system is to constantly remind us of the priorities of the vehicles and the priorities for
the customers. Right, because we could want desperately to replace a broken windshield.
Right.
Right? But if that's not the customer's priority, then that's not really our problem. You know what I mean? Our job is to meet your needs with excellence and not what we, superimpose on you.
And we also divvy it up by time frame. So if a customer expects a vehicle to be here long term for a project, there's a section of the pegboard that goes in. If it's expected to be out in a week, there's a section on the pegboard that goes in, and we know, hey, these are the ones that have to be turned out this week.
Yep.
And for those builds that are longer, we have yet a different paper that allows us to kind of go time by time. Okay, this is what we got done this week. This is what parts we use. This is what parts we need, because the Jeep has told us things.
Sure. Yeah.
And suddenly we now need blah. So instead of going, just going over and telling somebody and then that gets forgotten, it's actually wrote down what hardware we use. And not only that, helps us in the future if you come in and be like, hey, I saw you built a CJ5, for example, and I really like that build, and I'd like you to do that to mine. We can actually go over and be like, okay, we know exactly the recipe for that build.
Yep.
We knew what it took. And as things progress, maybe 4 years ago, this part was readily available and it was cheap. Now suddenly it's not. Well, we can look into that and modify that for that customer. And then it's not this, oh, well, now I hate some places where they go in there and it's like it's suddenly a shock.
Yes.
Oh, well, we tried to order this and it was 4 weeks later and we still haven't got it. What?
Yeah.
and that does occasionally still
Once in a
happen,
while.
but we are better equipped because of that report.
Yeah.
And that report also allows us the ability to communicate with customers regularly on the status of their project.
Yep. And that means that they don't have to talk to one person in the business. Anyone can go and look at that paper and go, hey, they call in for an update. Well, this is what we've accomplished this week.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And to say, I might not be the most equipped to answer your, to meet your needs and answer your questions right now, but I'll do my best based on the information I have left here before me. And I suppose the value of us sharing this with you, and I guess this is the contrary nature to the HIPAA law, is the fact that we're doing all the paperwork. We're doing all the internal things, right? And I think that oftentimes Again, if you were to go to I went to a new dentist last week. I filled out paperwork for an hour straight. I swear I did, between myself and my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I filled out so much paperwork. My hand cramped.
We're only asking you to fill out 2 minutes worth of paperwork.
You only get 2 minutes, and we hand you back paperwork. Most people like fold it up and stuff it in their glove box.
Yeah.
And if you do nothing else other than that in your whole entire life, that's fine. I'm unaffected. We're going to do us and create this paper trail, because that one moment where you call back in and you're like, I'm in Colorado and something has gone amiss,
which has happened.
I want to be able to go back and reference alignment sheets and components used and service install dates and mileage of when that was installed and what your current is, because I want to see the whole picture. For us, the objective is, and I've used this term for decades now, is a duck on water. When you look at a duck that's just peacefully sitting, on a pond or gliding across the lake, they look smooth and tranquil. But the reality is, underneath the surface where you can't see, their little flappy, I don't know, paws, flippers, legs.
I'm just going to let you struggle with this.
Whatever,
this is
are going a million miles a minute, right? And the goal is on the back end. I'm going to ignore you too. On the back end.
Would you like to know what that's called?
What is it called?
Do I tell him, Scott, or do I let him struggle?
I'm calling ducks things paws from
duck
now
paws.
on.
They're called duck paws. I'm over it.
Webbed feet.
Nope,
Yes,
they're duck paws. They're done. I'm done. It's duck paws. So mic drop. And so, realistically, you don't need to know any of that is going on the back end. You just need to get periodic updates on how your money is being used wisely and how your expectation, how we're working to try and meet your expectation. That's all we or you should expect out of the garage. And that, I always said this to Jim, that customer I referenced on the Cherokee. He was always I always found it so profound, because he was like, man, I can't believe we're getting this done and we're doing this thing. I said, Jim, it's just not that hard to A, believe that you have a need, and B, to do what we said we were going to do for you.
Yes.
Those are kind of straightforward expectations on your behalf as a consumer, you know? And those are some of just the little pieces, right? A lot of people look in, and I'm going to say this just in general. A lot of people look in on the business and they go, well, it must be nice. I'll say this. I've been quote unquote accused, if you will, of my parents starting the business, of somebody else's money starting the business. Oh, it must be nice.
When you're at a show and they walk up to you and you're like, I was expecting someone older.
Yeah, all the time in the day, right?
Who'd you inherit this from?
Who'd you inherit this from? Whatever. The thing is, we hear that, and while obviously I'm expanding upon it, so so it's that it's real, our listeners and viewers alike. The reality for us is there's a lot of significant legwork and a lot of little minutia things, like stuff that is not even relevant to today's topic, but the way that we timing or torque mark. I love how so many industry people, other businesses in our industry, are now doing that. Yeah, especially within our local market demographic. And good, it's a great practice. Yep. The fact that we're color coordinated, we know which technician touched which bolts, and our alignment shop also marks things, and so we can succinctly go in and make these determinations, again to benefit you. So there's a little bit of our HIPAA law of customers. I think that if you have any questions about this, or you want to try and work with us in the future, or you want to tell us a story about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your own experience, or
if you just want to annoy Jeff,
you can email the producer directly at jeffc@sfj4x4.com, or you can hit us up on our text-only number, 440-855-2100. That is a text-only number. Apparently, you can call that. We found out not too long ago.
Yeah, we would rather you just text it, because we ignore the calls. Because
it only rings a particular computer software. So it looks kind of funny when it comes through on our end of things.
Yeah, and for a while, we were inundated with medical calls that thought that was the correct number to call.
Yeah.
So we had stopped answering those, not realizing that people could actually call our text number.
Yeah, we did not realize they could actually call our text-only number, which is a software, not actually a phone. And that's valuable to know. It's super kind of a, technology, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yep.
So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. I'll let you know. We'd love to know how you think the HIPAA law has either benefited you or hindered you in your automotive experience over the years.
And coming up next week, our episode is literally called "What Would You Do for a Klondike Bar?" But more specifically, what would you do for Jeep parts? And if you have some wild or crazy story of what you've done for Jeep parts, I want you to send that in because we want to talk about that next week.
So this week we talked all about how we don't talk about you. Next week we're going to talk about you.
Absolutely.
Just
PG-13, please.
Well, Joe Brilla's out, obviously.
True, but wow.
We're gonna let's talk about for just a brief minute. We're gonna talk about this weekend. We were at Bantam Trail Fest.
So this is our trail review segment.
Trail review.
He wasn't able to do a transition, but Neil knocked it out.
No problem.
That was absolutely best transition we've had yet.
Yeah, well, we'll just clip that and just use it every time from here on out.
Tony is jumping into the comments saying that subject is a whole can of worms. And yes, that is what I'm anticipating. Please surprise me.
What would you do for a Klondike
with what
bar?
you would do?
All right. So Bantam Trail Fest numero 50, right? Cinco de Mayo, Cinco de Octubre.
And how many of those years have we been there?
We have been there 4 out of the 5.
Why did we miss it?
And we've sponsored, to my knowledge, we've sponsored
all
all
of them.
I had the vid.
There it is.
I had the coronavirus in 21.
This was a whole conversation that happened this weekend where we were
unpack
trying to figure out how we missed a year.
How did we miss a year? I mean, many people missed a year, but actually, so Bantam Trail Fest is a really neat
No,
event.
Joe, no photos. Sorry. I don't trust your photos, Joe.
That's in reference to the Klondike Bar conversation, folks, if you were not getting the inside joke. All right, so this event, you may have heard our friend Rob Morgan of Daddy Jeep Garage on YouTube there reference a couple weeks ago talking about, hyping it up. It is in its 5th year. It actually takes place at a property called the Kildu property, which is an old quarry, as many of our East Coast wheeling locations are, right? They're a retired or no longer producing resource area. And Friends of Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival started using this property, and obviously Tony could weigh in a little more succinctly, but I'm just going to butcher it for him. Started using this property, I think, before they actually owned it, while they were in still talks of it in late 19, early 20. We did not have a Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival, big traditional, brouhaha, in June of 2020 because obviously the world was in its shutdown. We did, however, as some of those things started to lift and we started to learn to live with the new normal, did have a 2020. Myself and one of our trail team members worked that one. I had Old Blue there. It was a very wet and cold experience, but a good one nonetheless. Then the following year, I got COVID late in September. And
Davey and I were kind of new
knew enough that I wasn't going to throw you to the wolves and have you just do a show by yourself.
Just yet.
So that was 21, and so we were unable to participate. We still paid for sponsorship. We still contributed, donation. There's a big bash, literally called the Bantam Bash, which is Saturday night. It's a dinner and prize giveaway opportunities. It's a cool way to socialize with people. The Kildu property, I should mention, is curated trails. It's going to be operate very similar to a number of other really appropriate, I'll call it well organized, right? So the organizers will always feel like, hey, there's more that we can do. I get that as a business owner. I always feel like there's more that we can do. But it operates in a manner at which, if you are a veteran and you want to go out and you want to try and flop your Jeep over, you could probably do it. Unless you would really have to not listen to Rob or the spotters and then you'll flop it. But there's good technical trails is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Or if you're an absolute greenhorn and just wet behind the ears and you want to go out and just learn how to shift into 4-wheel drive, there's some really nice scenic drives that you can do and participate in. There's a little bit of something for everyone.
And even on some of those green trails that you're talking about, the organizers have started to up it a little bit, so you have just the slightest amount of challenge to just push it and see what your Jeep can actually do without being overwhelming, without being so challenging that you're afraid to try that trail.
Absolutely. And so you'll have a green, a blue, and a black, and then you'll have a scenic road course. There's a night ride starting on Friday night where they've really started to embrace their Halloween kind of proximity to Halloween, and there's some kind of a scary or fun ride that you do. This season was clowns. This actually kind of started kind of organically, I think about 3 years ago, where one of the primary event organizers, Patty Joe, randomly had some skeletons in her closet. And she thought, hey, this is kind of fun.
Literal skeletons in the closet. Halloween decorations.
Decorations.
Fake ones.
And she... Good differentiation. Thank you, sir. And she kind of like brought them out for the event.
And it staged them very theatrically.
Yeah, and it just caught on. And it just caught on. And so now you have, people who are really coming out to embrace the kind of the kind of the spooky season feel.
And they did kind of the scare ride the Friday night where you went out and in the dark on the trails, and there was volunteers in costume that were jumping out at Jeeps and blowing horns, shooting confetti cannon
on Scott again, or throwing out lightsabers that light up and not touching people because that would be bad business. But lightsabering close to them while they are passing their woods. This was Scott's right now sour and brushing confetti off of him. It was this season or this year was scary clowns, right? So that's what the theme for this trail
Should be a
ride was.
disclaimer in case anybody has any
Phobias.
Tony's actually saying he's laughing at this so hard it hurts, or maybe he just overdid it this weekend.
That's a little bit of both. And so they are always looking for volunteers. You can go out and be privy to that. You get some great time on the trail. They always need trail guides and gunners. They actually do a bunch of training and trail maintenance prior to the event. So if you're really looking to get involved further, you can do that.
I would argue it's probably one of the better training for guide leads and gunners that exists in this
localized area. Right.
Correct.
I mean, how many places can you go relatively for free and go get like a communal, like, hey, let's do this professionally type of collective experience, right?
Yeah.
Because, and here's the thing, you've heard me talk about 10 mile for 2 mile, the run in Oil Valley, which is set up in a similar enough, and JJ USA is set up similarly enough, and there's these rides all over, but a lot of those properties are only accessed at that short period of time, and then otherwise they're not accessible otherwise.
Right.
Whereas this property is just dedicated to running the Bantam events. So they can run these training programs. They can have these volunteer weekends. They can do these recovery events.
Yeah.
And really ensure that the volunteers are as well prepared as a volunteer can be for this, right? So if you loved it and you like to get out on the trails, they need green guides and tail gunners. They need blue guides and tail gunners, and you really want to get out there and run it hard, they need black trail guides and gunners. And let alone they just need people to register vehicles.
That and then spotters on the trails too.
Absolutely.
So they'll have on the black trails, you'll have spotters that'll tell you how to tackle certain obstacles so that you can enjoy it without risking breaking your vehicle.
Yeah, if you want to know more about, kind of getting into these off-road events and some of this that you're talking about, there'll actually be a YouTube video coming out shortly. It will not be focused so much on Bantam Trail Fest, but on the concepts, and I tell a story about listening to spotters and stuff along the way. Hopefully that makes the video. We'll see. So, anything else on Trail Fest? Was there a particular Jeep that stood out to you as far as decoration or
I was watching
accessorized?
I was watching all day trying to see all the different decorations of the Jeeps, and there was several that were really well decorated.
Let me interrupt you, but hold that thought. I should preference that they were encouraged to decorate your Jeeps, and you're encouraged and welcome. People like seeing spooky, skeletons.
Wow, you've been hanging out with Scott too much.
It's the lightsaber. I'm
sure,
feeling it.
Sure it is.
All right.
So anyways, there was, in my opinion, there was none that were just over the top this year.
Oh, because they were there to wheel.
They were there to
wheel.
There was some really good ones. I'm not taking that away from them, but there wasn't any that were just over the top. I think my favorite one, and I pointed it out to Neil at the end, was the most thematically put together, and it was a Jaws Jeep, and it had the skeleton shark on the bull bar, and it just really well thematically put together.
Absolutely. Yep, that was a neat one. I'll let you have the thematic one. I'm going to share that my favorite off-road rig of the weekend was and I'm excited to share this with Scott. It was oh gosh, I think he told me 61, but he could have told me late 50s. It kind of doesn't matter. Willie's pick-em-up truck.
Yep.
Okay. And it was on a CJ5 frame.
Ooh.
So he had shortened the rear box, so it was like a stubby, more or less.
Yep.
So it had this great tight great tight turn radius, had that nice short wheelbase. The only downside to short wheelbases are hill climbs, folks, but otherwise this is kind of ideal for these tight technical east of the Mississippi wooded trails. The body panels were that of a wheeler, He had his bed appropriately accessorized with goodies for repair. I actually encountered him. I had saw his rig running around. But I had encountered him. There was somebody who was wheeling a newer style Jeep. They were green. They were just getting into it, and they had encountered some challenges. And this was one of the guys who had jumped in and had offered up tools and was sharing in the repair process for this individual. So after they got done and they got that person fixed, I had an opportunity to talk about this guy's Jeep, and it was pretty much, I don't want to say bone stock. But it was pretty much a stock CJ5 chassis. It's got some intention to do some modifications, to put in different transfer case and different transmission and whatnot. But he keeps wheeling it. He's recently put power steering at it. It was a manual steering, manual everything CJ5, and he superimposed this stubby Willie's pick-em-up truck about it. So it was pretty cool.
I think what was really fun about that too was early on in the event, Davey had the drone up in the air and he's following a line of Jeeps going out into the trail, and he comes over to me. He's like, "What is this?" And I'm looking at the screen, and he's 100 feet up in the air at this tiny thing traveling through. I'm like, "Davey, I honestly can't identify what that is from that view."
Was that the truck you're saying?
It was the truck.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it was a neat one. It was neat. So there's our big takeaways on that. We're going to close out our program, but we're not actually going to go away. So since this is kind of a new process for you, our listeners, just understand that as we sign off and you hear a little bit of an outro, you can hang in there and maybe hear about how our weekend went. So, with that said, this was a cool subject. Hopefully it was a little bit revealing about SFJ 4x4. Again, our objective going on throughout the next season is to kind of continue our art series at the beginning of the month, where we talk about installation or components utilized in Jeep and automotive builds. We want to share with you, up and coming cool products. We want to talk about trails and outdoor experiences that you might benefit from, or Jeep adventures that you should put on your bucket list. Additionally, we're going to reveal or unpack more and more about the business that, is our flagship parent company that helps this, this podcast move forward. And as a shout out in that moment, thank you to our Patreons who continue to support this podcast. There's always room for more. There's lots of extra content available for our Patreon. So I really encourage you to head over there and see if that would be a good fit for you. And if you do that, you get involved with our Discord, you get some further behind the scenes look at what makes us tick, and hopefully we get to share with you as well in the process. So a big shout out to those folks. But if you have suggestions for us, things you would like to hear us talk about in the future, you can always hit us up on that text only number, that email to Jeffrey as you would like to. I guess without further ado, we've got Jeeps to build and we got cool things to do. Check out Jeffrey's live coming up tomorrow on Tuesday. Until then, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on. So that's our new outro from Davey.
Yep. Yep, that was interesting.
Yep.
That was fun. I mean, it was appropriate.
Yeah.
Nice
short little outro.
Yeah, a little thing. So Mad Scientist, what'd you do this weekend? Because obviously you killed it at the shop. Like I said, I noticed that. I came in, I was in, and Greg was in on Sunday as well.
Oh, okay.
But I came in over the weekend a couple different times, and I noted that you guys killed it. Worked through all the lists and everything.
Yeah, when we got back Saturday, we saw the marker board list was gone, the international was
away.
moved,
Yeah,
the door was in the shop.
I was
what the heck happened?
Yeah, it was like I said. Honestly, I said I'm going to just change my job, my role. I went back and I told Jen. I said honestly, they're more productive when I'm not there. I'm just going. I'm the problem. I talk too much,
Maybe,
and I'm just going to make lists. I'm going to change my job role, and I'm just going to make lists. I'm going to take out the trash. And then I'm just going to stay out of your guys' hair. That's what I do.
Greg really likes lists.
Yes, that's true. So does Jeffrey. We know.
Yeah.
And you like lists, but you like to hop around your list.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Greg's lists have to be a little more curated in the process.
If
Greg
or I have a list of just check.
I can't make
all the way
lists fast
down.
enough.
You can't keep up.
I can't keep up.
But for Scott, you could just do 10 different lists, give them all to him, and he'll pick and choose between the lists, but somehow they'll all get done at the same time, and you're like, what happened?
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, so what did you end up doing after work then? They're not even here. Don't even look at that.
I was trying to remember what I was doing on Saturday.
Okay.
I did make a bender for doing flat stock, so like 1 inch to 2 inch long, 1/8 inch thick.
I can't stop thinking about, I'm totally interrupting you. I can't stop thinking about trying to chop up my current cheap Jeep to do as low center of gravity as possible.
Yep.
And I know that that's not a good move right now in my life.
Yes.
But
we did that before, and you didn't have a daily for a long
6
time.
years.
Yes.
Yeah, believe me, I'm well aware of that at this point. You know what? I'm going to transition. I'm going to go back. JL bodies, are they entirely aluminum?
No.
So the unibody of it is steel. The doors are just aluminum.
Door and hood. And tailgate, if you are cool and have one of those.
My poor dad.
Wow.
My poor dad
out there.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad that I'm in that cool truck.
That's okay. Myself, I ripped on Gladiators over the weekend. I'm just kind of securing the fact
dirty?
that. I feel like
It's because he wants one so bad.
I do. I'm just jealous.
now-
I'm really just envious.
So one fun thing, get back to the update. I finally used my mill for the first time in like 4-ish years, I think.
You had it for 4 years and you haven't used
think.
it?
Maybe it's been 3. But anyway, it's been an awesome flat surface for this whole time. And been trying to figure out how to make this thing work. And it's a struggle when I'm not an electrician.
Yeah.
But I needed to tap straight holes into this 1-inch thick piece of block that I was going to use for the bending posts.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to use my drill press with the tap holder and a live center to hold pressure on it, and that didn't work. It was crooked real fast. So I tried the power tap with the drill press.
What is a power tap?
We put a tap in the chuck a little loose, and you use the motor to turn the tap.
Oh boy.
And that did not go well.
Okay.
But did not break the tap. So I was like, okay. My dad used his mill to power tap, and he would like turn on, pull down, and then turn it off and let the motor just continue to spin a little bit. And that's how you would do that. So I'm like, well, I obviously don't have power to this, so I can't do that. I know. Put a wrench on the spindle, put the tap in the collet, and just crank it in. That way the mill head is holding it straight. You can use the quill to go up and down. And it worked really well.
I mean, that is just the most level of fabric cobbling that
I love it.
Well,
that is genius.
You know, in the piece that he talks about, like on our intro, well, I use my drill press as a sort of mill. All right, so now we're using, or as a sort of lathe. Yeah. So now we're using our mill as a
tap machine.
As a sort of tap machine.
Yes, as a tap holder.
Yeah.
So why I was doing that is because my wife is a purveyor of all things free on the side of the road. It sort of looks like
I have this couch. I have a couch for you.
So she
just
brought
taking
home,
it to his house and dropping it off.
I know.
She brought in some planks that I believe used to be folds of a table. You know, panels,
leaves
that you would put in a table. She wants to make them into shelves. So
I support this.
Of course, we can't just go to the store and buy shelf brackets. That would be too easy. We're, the SFJ difference. We have to make them ourselves.
God.
So you would think it'd be real easy with my equipment to make bins in the same spots and make things consistent and everything else. That is not the case.
I was determined to be alive.
That was
Were you trying to do fancy brackets?
Well, if you want to see these brackets, you're gonna have to go on the Discord. And you'll see some pictures of those.
Patreons.
But, yes, ish.
So yes.
But I was able to make 4 brackets out of flat bar and some rectangular tubing with my new tool, and my new brake was able to bend them as well. So it's not on there yet, but it will be.
I was gonna say I'm gonna go look, but because I didn't see it pop up.
I was gonna say I didn't see it either.
So to go do that.
Pop
so
up.
Anyway,
Like my lightsaber.
so was able to do that, and then on Sunday we just cleaned house, and we ended up going to an event in Geneva with a couple of friends of the business, in their Jeep. So
What?
What did you do?
we went to the.
Did we get excluded again? Jeff?
Again?
Did we get excluded?
2 weeks in a row.
Are you freaking kidding me? I don't even know who you went with. But like Dan and Joel were like, "Oh, that's so crazy that Scott didn't invite you." Like I couldn't wait to.
You went with Dan and Joel again, didn't you? Oh man!
Yes, we may have gone
Wow.
with Joel and Dan.
Well,
to
clearly
Geneva.
we suck, Jeff. That's what it
I was
comes
gonna
down to.
say,
To,
I was giving all the praise of the Jeep because I drove it down to Bantam, and
Oh, it's a great Jeep.
Oh,
And they were there in the big yellow beast.
Eugene.
So muddy.
Eugene, I know its name. You don't even know their name.
I
know
know.
their birthdays.
I wanted you to feel included. So it was the
Okay.
Geneva Psychic Fair, and they had Reiki and other
stuff
vendors.
that's up your alley.
Yeah, so they were all excited, and we got through that, and then we left and went through Bridge Street, but it was a complete rain out. So
The fall harvest festival.
yes, we
Yeah.
tried to multitask and do more than things and have the time of the day like always. But
Yes.
yeah.
they seemed to have a good time, so that was fun. to
And
do.
you had a good time.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
Did you get any good fortunes coming up, or?
I didn't do that part. There was a
It's not
list.
that's not his thing. Stones are his thing.
Yeah,
And
but
grounding.
still,
That's
you
fine.
know,
That's fair.
if
Yeah.
you're at a psychic fest, I feel like you should get a
my
card
wife got
reading
a-
or
or-
crystal ball reading of some kind while
My
you're
daughter
there.
got a cool masquerade mask that she was all geeked about.
Oh,
That's cool.
There's some wood stuff I need to show you so you can make it with your laser.
Oh, okay,
oh yeah.
okay.
All right, Jeffrey. What'd you do?
So obviously Trail Fest, that was Saturday. But then Sunday we did Xander's birthday party.
Happy
Which-
birthday, Xander.
He's 11 now, and on the 15th, so tomorrow he officially turns 11.
Mm-hmm.
But that was nice. We went out to my parents' house for that and got to watch the Browns get annihilated again.
Yeah.
And then
Dun, dun, dun.
stayed and watched the full Steelers game. To the point where we're like, oh, we should do something for dinner. We didn't plan on staying this long. So I ran to Little Caesars in Waterford and
Oh,
got-
my favorite.
I
And
got
honestly-
recognized and asked if I'd literally drive in from Ashtabula just for their pizza. I'm like,
Oh my
well,
God.
kind of, but
So
no.
we've actually talked about this specific. If Scott doesn't remember, we've actually talked about this specific location on our American Hustle podcast because Jeff and I are so impressed at an ownership level.
Oh, it's amazing.
because of how they run their business.
Absolutely.
And they have this is their second location, right? Or is this their?
They actually, as a couple, own several businesses.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was just several Little Caesars from
Right.
past conversation. It's several businesses.
Oh.
And the woman that runs the Waterford one, when I'm always there,
Yes.
she actually is a Corey school teacher as well.
No.
Yep. So she's going to retire after this year, so she can run the Waterford business more succinctly and more involved with it. But
Can you imagine how much better it's going to be if she's going to be more full time? That's remarkable.
right.
Ah, that is remarkable. Anyway, so you got noticed that there's your crowning jewel for the weekend. You got noticed at the Little Caesars. Good for you.
Yeah. That tells you.
No, I was going to say, it tells you how often you eat there.
I guess. So, anyways, it was a good time. It was a great weekend. An opportunity to watch. My dad's favorite team is the Raiders, so watching the Steelers play the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
My brother was there. His favorite team's the Raiders. So it was really fun to have that.
2 against 1 there.
Well, my grandmother is a Steelers fan, and my uncle from Florida is also a Steelers fan who was on the phone messaging back and forth. So all the smack talk going on within the
Sure,
family. It was
of course.
awesome. My dad literally said he was going to go into witness protection by the end of the game because of how bad the Raiders did. And normally we expect the Raiders to beat the Steelers because that's just how it works.
Sure.
Tell them to up their golf game. Come on, man.
Yep.
Those sports ball players. Oh my goodness.
So that's basically what the weekend was. You know, Xander he wanted me to make dirt and worms along with his
love dirt
cupcakes.
and worms.
So
Oh,
we
my
did
goodness.
graveyard dirt.
Yes, that's cool.
And of course, one of my friends is a landscaper, and that day in the morning had posted that nothing makes him happier than making dirt look pretty. So I said, "Me too," and sent a picture of the dirt worms.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah,
That's good. Well, it's a nice way to round out. You know, we had a busy Saturday. Obviously, obviously we were together at Trail Fest, and I really enjoyed that. I told, Davey, I like to make it awkward. You know what I mean? I want to affirm, and I want to do it in the most authentic way possible. So it was like, I made sure to say rate 2 people. Like, you made this make a difference, because obviously in the early years where I was loading trailers until ungodly hours of the night.
Yes.
And, we were working right up through, the cutoff time, and then I would start loading trailers. And I understand I probably could have been a little more organized in the process, but the reality is we're just trying to do too many things.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey and Davey, and specifically Davey taking lead on packing stuff and having lists. Now, he did manage to miss the bungee balls in the process.
Bungee balls and a plastic piece from our PVC sign frame,
Yeah.
which was fine because he adapted, overcame, and used neon green duct tape to patch it, and it worked.
Is there a better way to do that?
And Joe O'Brien bailed us out.
I was going to say, he called us out in the comments. I didn't read it, but he called us out and said, next year, make sure you have your zip ties.
Oh, did he?
So just so that you're aware, we did not take my rig, and I always have emergency zip ties in there.
Oh, yeah.
I still don't think I would have had as many zip ties as Davey needed for this.
Oh, Davey
trail
brought
fix,
none of the affixing, right? We had these big signs. They're beautiful signs. People like them. They're the best signs. And so
Not gonna comment.
Davey didn't have the bungee ball, so we had Joe O'Brien saved us.
Yeah,
with
he did save the day, and he's in the comments again. I saved the day. Yes, you did, Joe. You
absolutely.
really
I didn't
did.
even read the comments. I didn't know they were there. So he had the zip ties, so they worked, and but it was advantageous, right? It was really nice, and so that was awesome. And the guys, and so we did not take Jeff's rig, as he mentioned. We didn't even take any of the normal things. We took my wife's mall crawler.
Yeah.
So if we needed any type of fun hair ties or necklaces, maybe anything that feminine specific, and water bottles. That was pretty much all we got. Oh, and some rocks. You would have liked the rocks. She has plenty
there
of
was
rocks.
a bucket of rocks in the little bit of seat that I had.
Yeah.
Is there any
for the
other
ride
way?
back.
Yeah, so so that's what we had out of the mall crawler, but it looked beautiful, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And then obviously we took Clyde down, and Dan and Joel, who I'm not going to speak to anymore. We thought we were doing them a service. Look how they repaid us. Took Clyde home, so we all kind of traveled back together. It was really nice. If I didn't have enough adventure. And we will have to evaluate because we stood for 8 hours.
We stood for 8 hours.
Obviously, that I don't love sitting at shows. It's not.
But you have a breaking point.
We're gonna have to evaluate how we do things. Because
legs were tired by the time we were done.
The legs and knees were tired from
Yeah.
what we're doing. I think it's so valuable not to sit so that we look like. I mean, we do want to be there, and we want to be enthusiastic to meet, our customers, our listeners, our followers, and engage with them. So I don't want you to. It's not inconvenient. I don't want to be like sitting, but I do need to rest the legs from time and time again.
Yeah. Davey hid in the back of the Jeep a lot, but he was
I was
playing with the drone,
putting my equipment away, and,
or I was on the drone, and
on
he's
the drone.
he's sitting.
That's okay. I managed to find and pop a squat a couple different times too. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't have enough, so I managed to run out to Spirit Halloween Store, one of their pop-ups.
Yeah.
When we got back, just to kind of get take my kid out and just kind of get in the mood, if you will.
Yeah.
So I did that Saturday night, and we kind of closed down the Spirit Halloween.
They're open late.
They are open late.
Yeah.
And they're getting close to their
Did you guys
discounts.
get startled by any of the buttons that
Terrified my son at first.
because
He
some
had
of them just really get out there.
Oh, they were awesome.
Yeah.
They were. It was honestly a really nice controlled. Like
Was it the one in Beulah?
It was.
Did you do all the little games and the
did,
wheel?
Did everything.
Yeah.
Did everything because I was looking for, like, we're not really like big on the haunted house. Like, my kids are kind of young. They need more of like a fun house type experience. And I'll be honest, you got to pay for that, and you gotta kind of make time to go somewhere for that.
Yeah. Where Spirit, it just kind of lets you come in and play with their
Spirit
stuff.
just kind of lets you come in and you play with it, and it's kind of fun and it's kind of kooky. And we tried on costumes and we just had fun as a.
The Brown family, they come in, they immediately go to the left and miss that whole aisle of
spooky, scary stuff.
the animatronic stuff.
Yeah. Well,
that Jeff would just spend the entire time.
I may own a couple animatronics.
Oh, yeah,
So,
totally.
Anyways,
in my kids.
I was going to say in the comments when we were talking about resting at the shows, Kristen has said maybe a traveling lounge set so everybody can relax and chat together. That's kind of fun.
That's kind of fun.
Anyways, back to your story.
Yeah. No. Well, so we needed to pick up a costume for my kid, you know, and he's 11, right? So he's a preteen, and so we're kind of stuck at that, like, do I trick or treat? Do I, you know, he's still, we've managed to
trick or treat.
We've managed to preserve my child's childhood, right?
Yes.
So he's still a little more, he's a little more innocent than others, right?
It's hard to find a costume for our boys at this
It's a
point.
little hard to find a costume. Does he go serious? Does he, we're not really into the gory stuff. I'm not against it, but it's just not exactly our MO. It's not my wife's cup of tea,
Right.
And my son really loves inflatables. He's really loved inflatables. I go all out for Christmas. I'm a Christmas decorator, all that kind of stuff. So he was like, I think I might go trick-or-treating if I can kind of hide myself a
Did
little
you
bit.
do an inflatable dinosaur?
My son.
Because that's what Xander did.
No.
That's
no,
what
no,
he
no.
picked for this
Did
year.
he?
Yeah.
My kid, well, first of all, he really wanted to be a Ghostbuster. But their actual Ghostbuster uniform is $60, and basically it's a tan jumpsuit and a belt. And I was like, I'm not paying $60 for that.
Right.
Correct.
What really sets you over the top, however,
Is if you want the proton pack.
which is $100.
Okay, but that proton pack is actually kind of legit.
All right, but he's 11.
Right.
I'm not paying that
No,
for my
the
11-year-old.
$60 one, you get
And
the
I'm-
little fabric thing that
and
is
he's-
supposed to be a proton pack.
And I'm
but
not like, my poor kid's not going to wear like a cardboard box at this point. Like, I could fool a 5-year-old with a cardboard proton.
This is why we were
proton
so
pack.
excited when we bought our Batman costume for Aiden for 50 cents.
Nice.
Because we had gone to Spirit and it was going to be $100.
Yeah.
And
hard
while
pass.
he's sad that he doesn't have like a batarang and his mask is a little janky,
His mask is a little
it's a 50-cent costume.
It's a 50-cent costume.
It is what it is.
He's gonna wear it for a night. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. We got my kid. He ended up. I made him put like costumes back. Right.
Yeah.
I was there for the long haul. I spent a lot of time. I got to know the customer service because we were the only people in the store and we were playing with.
and they're
everything.
going, would you just leave already so we can close?
Oh yeah, they might have closed early. Didn't think about that. My bad. If you're listening, because I know they actually follow us to a degree of sorts. I apologize. I didn't even thought about that. Long story short, he ended up, after we did everything and came back to it, he ended up with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man inflatable.
Yes. That's awesome.
He had to go home immediately at like 11 at night and put on his Stay Puft.
Yes.
And he did a little dance, and he had to show my wife, and he had to show my parents.
That's
and
awesome.
the whole shooting match. So
Yes.
a very fun way to start to get into the kind of the Halloween spirit, so hysterical. Is there anything good coming up before we depart for the day?
Well, there's a Christmas parade coming up.
Oh, the big Christmas parade. But even before we get to the Christmas
there's
parade,
a Halloween parade coming
there's
up.
the Halloween parade in Meadville. You'll be participating on behalf there,
Yep.
right? And so that's a pretty cool experience. We have the Candy Crawl, which is open to Conneaut or anybody who wants to come in as a business. SFJ 4x4 will be participating in the Candy Crawl, and we'll be at the Trunk or Treat for New Leaf United Methodist. That's all on the 26th.
Yeah.
And then we do have the big countdown for the Christmas parade.
Well, and before the countdown, we also have SEMA. So Greg and I will be going
right.
to SEMA.
That's right. You'll be doing our SEMA coverage, so
Yep.
people can look forward to it. I'll look forward to seeing the pictures come up of the cool rigs. So definitely some cool stuff coming up in the future. But I guess without further ado, Jeep on.
Keep on again.
Jeep on again.